Good evening. This is On the Level with LINSKY. I'm Marsha LINSKY, a former magistrate, former prosecutor, and currently criminal defense attorney. I'm using this series On the Level with LINSKY to introduce new ideas and concepts involving the criminal justice system. I'm hoping to provide information, and hopefully we can all learn something along the way. Tonight, our guests are Aisha, the founder of Project Me, along with Jillian and Jeremy. As shown on her website, Project Me offers recovery support services to aid individuals in removing any barriers they have to entering into or sustaining long-term recovery. Project Me also offers harm reduction services and education for those struggling with substance use disorder. They support people and members of the community. Aisha has her own unique journey and experiences that she uses to support others growing out of addiction. As she states on her bio on her website, she has been in recovery from opioid substances for 14 years, since being sentenced to serve time in prison. She has a passion to support others in realizing their potential in a holistic manner. Due to her history, Project Me was created based on a vision of support she wished had been available to her when she was in active addiction, early recovery, and following her incarceration. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce Miss Aisha Dis.
Thank you so much, Marsha.
How are you this evening?
I'm great, and I'm just so glad and honored to be here, so thank you for having me.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, as you said, I'm a person that's in long-term recovery. So I've been in recovery for about 14 and a half years right now. And that was after I spent some time in the Indiana Department of Corrections. Following like a sentencing, I had a charge where I was then executed. Like my sentence ended up being executed, so I had to serve the remainder of my time. And that was about 10 months. And while I was gone, I had another warrant or like matter come up. And so I was brought back to Allen County. So like in total, I spent about 4.5 months in IDOC. And then, about 5.5 months in IDOC, 4.5 months in the Allen County jail, waiting for the new charge to, the outcome of the new charge to play out. And then finished out that time, like 6 months in work release. And from there, I just started setting some good goals and taking the steps to get me there. And that is where Project Me kind of came from, is after I got home. I guess it became very apparent to me, like really early, how powerful stigma is, because when I came home, I had a lot of good goals set, like positive things that I wanted to do, and had supportive family and a partner and just all of the things, but I still got a lot of pushback from people just when I was trying to do the right things. And so I would hear things like, what are you going to go to college for? You have 4 felonies. Why would you do that? And that's horrible. I mean, like, really, that's bad. Like, for somebody to come home from prison and want to go to college and take those steps and be motivated to do that, and then get pushback about that because of what other people's beliefs are. And so I think that is the stigma. Like, people believe that if you have 4 felonies, you shouldn't go to college because you would waste your money.
Were you afraid that you wouldn't be able to find a job with those 4 felonies?
Of course. But I just took, like, the steps. I talked to people, like, in college before I even enrolled to see what the best, kind of degree would be for somebody that has 4 felonies. And, excuse me, I think what that was and, kind of still is now is, like, in the human services field, because there are a lot of people that are in recovery from a lot of different things that go into human services. And work as case managers or coaches, just different things like that. There's a lot of opportunities for people that have a history in, like, the human services field.
And when you refer to spending time at IDOC, that's the Indiana Department of Corrections, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that wasn't your very first offense that put you there, was it?
No, that was actually my 3rd felony charge that I had. So that was a combination receiving stolen property and forgery. And so, as I said, I didn't get sent to prison immediately. Like, that sentence, when I received it, wasn't an executed sentence. I actually had like a year of home detention, and then I had 2 years of probation to finish out, and was not successful at probation. And so I got put on home detention for a violation, and I think I was about 4.5 months into my 6 months of home detention, and they came and did a search at my house and found paraphernalia. I had suffered 2 non-fatal overdoses, like, in that same kind of period of time. So everything was coming together in a negative way, we'll say, in my life right before I went to prison. So I really feel like I'll tell anybody that'll listen to me that at the time, prison felt like it was the end of my life. But I think if I hadn't gotten sentenced to prison, I probably wouldn't be here talking with you today.
Do you feel that was, I've always heard when it comes to recovery, you have to kind of hit that rock bottom before you start coming, I guess, back up in a sense. Do you feel that going to the Department of Corrections then became that rock bottom for you?
I think for me that absolutely was, yes. Being like removed from my babies was probably the most negatively impactful thing, because up until that point I had been their only full-time parent, and so even like when I came home for that identity, like as a mother, to not really be in place, that was devastating for me. And I know that these are extreme circumstances, but I lost my dad while I was locked up. And my mom had had cancer prior to me going to prison, and it was in remission like when I got sentenced to go. But her cancer returned after that. So I lost my mom about 10 months after I got home, but I knew she was sick while I was there. And so that does something to you also. Like if you lose both of your parents, you know, and I'm kind of there having to start my whole life over. So there was just a lot of different factors for me, but absolutely it was rock bottom.
Okay. How did you decide to start Project Me?
So thank you for asking that. It's a funny kind of story. So in college, I mentioned I was in college, and that was very empowering for me. One of the things that they had us do one of my last semesters in college was to write a program. That if you could write a program that you would want to start, what would that be? At that time, it was called Light Your Own Way, because I feel like there's something to just taking credit for all of your accomplishments in recovery unabashedly. So everything. As a coach today, if I notice that somebody brushes their hair, you know, and that has been a struggle for them, I'll pop a confetti popper for them. Like, I think we really need to celebrate all of those things. And so I kind of got off track with that.
So
question.
you, in writing this project in school, you got this idea to begin Project Me.
Yeah.
And so how did you then bring it to fruition?
So the first thing that I did was I started a Facebook page. And as I mentioned, there was like a lot of stigma. So people would reach out to me or in like an organic way and just say, "Hey, Aisha, I know that you have felonies, but you went to college and got a degree. What did you go to college for?" Just things like that. Because I've always been very open and honest about my story, about going to prison, about my, you know, struggle with substances and all of that. And so I think I just felt like a safe place for people where they could ask me questions like that. So I thought, why don't I just start like something official where people have a page that they can reach out to, where I can post information about how you go to college with felonies, you know, different things like that. So that's how it started. I just made a Facebook page, started posting like inspirational stuff or just things I was kind of learning along the way in my own recovery, and people started reaching out. And then I got certified as a peer recovery coach, and I don't know, the rest is kind of history. I feel like I have made a lot of connections in the community. Like that's speaks to the growth of Project Me, is that what I didn't want to do is remake the wheel. So I think I've done a good job of like making the connections and figuring out what's already in place in our community and then trying to fill those gaps, like fill in the gaps for the things that don't already exist, or for people that get missed with the services that we already have. So I just very much, I think, decided early on that I wanted to support people that were in active, maybe even chaotic use, like drug use, because a lot of times those individuals don't feel like there's anything there for them, any like support services there for them. And I think they feel that way because there aren't a lot of support services for people that are actively using substances unless they verbalize that they want to go to treatment, or and that's not necessarily how to approach people, because not everybody wants to go to treatment. Not everybody wants to stop using drugs, and that's just a reality. So if we're, as humans, speaking about loving all people, then we need to figure out how to love people who use drugs and who maybe are going to continue to use drugs, just like we support people that want to be in recovery. So, we support people across the spectrum. And how that came to be is I love Maslow's hierarchy. So when I was in college, that was like the basis for Project Me, was like, how do we create a foundation for people? Because it's really hard to focus on recovery related things or rebuilding relationships if you don't know when you're going to eat or if you have some place to sleep that night. So let's like just look at people like humans and love them and not expect them to do the impossible by having this success in recovery when they're experiencing homelessness. It's not realistic. So I wanted to figure out how to do those things, and so that is where Project Me was born from.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you've brought a couple other individuals with you, Jillian and Jeremy.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Jillian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, okay. I was in active addiction for, I'd say probably 15 years of my life. I also did a lot of time in DOC. I had 2 separate cases, but they ran together, and I had 10 years, and I ended up going in and out on that case about 4 times. And for me, actually, being in prison didn't feel like rock bottom when I actually got out and was finally off for probation and all that stuff. And then I was just using without any repercussions. That's when I would say I was probably in rock bottom and made the decision to want to change my life because I wanted to, not because I had somebody telling me I had to. And I actually decided I just need to get up and move, and I moved here to Fort Wayne about a year and 4 months ago and got clean. And I met Aisha at handing out hope at the library, and I didn't even really know what I was there looking for, but she just started talking to me, and I said, I'm just looking to make connections in the community, see what's up here. I'm new, so...
What is handing out hope?
So every Wednesday, it's a community coalition between the HEART program, so that the HEART team that's embedded in the Fort Wayne Police Department, and then Positive Resource Connection. Excuse me. I had strep throat last week.
Oh, no.
Anyhow, so the HEART team, Positive Resource Connection, who does like free STI, HCV, and HIV testing and treatment. Who else? Trinity English Lutheran Church, and then Just Neighbors, who is like a family shelter. We all came together as a coalition just to offer, so we do like a meal, like a lunch, so out of a food truck. And then we all just offer whatever resources we have there. Project Me and one of the members of the HEART team will go down like to the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission and kind of direct people back to the food truck, because there's also people there that like for health coverage and to get like free tablets and phones and things. So it's just almost like a pop-up community resource thing that happens every Wednesday from 11 to 1 o'clock at Trinity English Church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeremy, nice to have you here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Me and Jillian's story kind of intersects a little bit. We are actually a couple. We both lived in the same county, but my addiction starting off, I've probably been in active addiction for almost 20 years, or had been up until I moved up here. And it was just, it probably stayed stagnant for about 10 years, and then I hit a point to where I went to prison. My very first felony charge, actually. I ended up getting in trouble, going to prison, and I wasn't given any real opportunity to do any rehabilitation while I was in there. So when I got back out, I fairly quickly reoffended and went back in. Was able to do RWI in there, which is recovery while incarcerated, which did help me a little bit. And got back out, and me and Jillian got together, and we both, kind of in addiction. I started using fairly quickly after I got out again. I was at the same kind of point to where she was, to where I didn't know what to do. I was also off of, was not on probation or parole or anything at that point anymore, and didn't know what to do. There wasn't a lot of resources in Huntington, which is where we were from before we moved up here, and just kind of felt like we needed to change. We were both at the same place, the same point, kind of intersected, and decided we wanted to move up here and do something with ourselves, and moved up here with the last little bit of money we kind of had at that point to push ourselves to do what we had to do and stick with it. And ended up, she met Aisha through going to Handing Out Hope, and she's been there with us ever since, and kind of aligns with a lot of stuff. I feel like since I've been in my addiction, you don't meet a lot of people who ask nothing of you. You almost feel like there's some shtick or
stipulations.
Yeah, that's maybe going to be along with something to do with it, even if that's not necessarily the case. A lot of times you feel like that, and this is the first time I've ever felt like there was nothing expected. It was just with open arms, like, what do you need help with? It doesn't matter where you're at, not expecting you, not asking you anything else of you other than what you need to.
Have you started becoming more involved with Project Me and giving back some as well?
Yeah, actually, today's the first day I was able to go and do community outreach with Aisha, and also on, what's the advisory board thing?
Advisory committee, yeah.
Let her tell you a little bit about that too, but it feels good to be at this point. When just like a year and 4 months ago, I was at a place to where I had the last money in my pocket and was like, I got to do something.
Congratulations,
So,
yeah, to both of you.
It feels really good, so, yeah.
I know, I was always so, I just admired that about you all, and I think I shared that with you, like, early on, that just how hard it is to remove yourself from everything and everybody, like your whole environment and everything.
That's an important part of recovery, though, isn't it?
It is, but it's so hard, and the two of them did it, though, like with little, and so I did. I just wanted to, like, lift them up with whatever I had, because I had never done that in my recovery, where I just completely removed myself from everything that I knew. But a lot of times people do that. Like, people come to Fort Wayne for treatment and have no resources and no one here. And they get done and they do want a different life, and they don't know how to go about, like, doing that. It's very hard, but so commendable. So, yeah.
Now, part of your organization, you also make Narcan available to the public. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that was one of the first programs, I'd say, that we launched was I registered Project Me as a Narcan distributing entity. And so we're able to distribute Narcan. I'm a certified trainer, so I do community Narcan trainings. Right now I'm doing them quarterly just at the library. I just schedule them for the meeting room, and anybody can come to them, and they're totally free. And that's a big part of what we do during our street outreach too, like that Jeremy mentioned we were doing this evening. So we have backpacks that we wear that have Narcan, like we usually carry like 20 Narcan or like 10 Narcan an hour in our bags, along with like fentanyl test strips, which are strips that people can use to test their other substances for fentanyl contamination. Because again, we just believe, if somebody's choosing to use drugs, they still should know what they're using, or they deserve to know what they're putting in their bodies, so that they can prepare. And then we also offer safe use kits for people, and that just decreases the risk of harm or death, not only for the person, but also like just in the community.
Where could somebody find information on when your next Narcan training would be?
So it is on our website. It's also on the Facebook page, probably on our Instagram page as well. I think our Instagram is at Project Me FW, and on Facebook, I want to say it's at Project Me FW, but
Okay.
no, don't quote me on that. It's all Project Me.
Are people able to donate to your organization?
Sure. So Project Me has a Venmo account. And then just very recently, we've had people like donate their birthdays, like how you can donate on Facebook, like to your nonprofit. So I thought that's been pretty cool, because I have run Project Me by myself for the majority of the time. And so I don't have a lot of time for fundraising and stuff like that, or haven't up to this point. And so really just anything that anybody can do. We're a lot grant funded, but there are some like tools and resources that we offer that aren't covered by grants. So it would be great to, just have some help.
And you are an official 501c3 not-for-profit?
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of those services that are not covered by the grants?
So we offer in the safe use kits, we offer, we have a safe meth use kit, and we have a safe crack smoke kit. And the pipes are not covered by any grant funding that we have. Also just like administrative things like paper or materials. As I mentioned, I do an education at the jail. I'm also at the juvenile, like the Allen County Juvenile Center. And then we're part of the Family Recovery Court as well. And like any materials, it's all like volunteer time. And so any materials that I use or things that I print, when the guys from JCAP graduate, I give them T-shirts. And all of that is kind of just money that comes out of nowhere, I guess. Because, yeah, it's just out of maybe my personal money or whatever, just so we can do those things. But of course, it can't always be that way. So at some point, we will need to look at more like fundraising opportunities. And
do you help people who are currently involved in the judicial system as well?
Absolutely. So I would say, I say that we're a peer support and harm reduction organization with a focus on substance use disorder. But because of my history and just because I know those struggles of people who were previously incarcerated, thank you. It's absolutely something that I feel like I have to do. And offering like the same support that we would for people with substance use disorder, that we offer those same supports for people with justice involvement, because those barriers are even more or even greater. Just like technology barriers that people have, or really just being kind of dropped in the city or transported back to the city where they came from and not having anything. And I was just talking to somebody earlier today just about things like just the decision-making process. Like, you don't make any decisions for the whole time that you're gone, you're incarcerated. And then just things like going to the grocery store can be completely overwhelming. Like for me, myself, I know like the first couple times I went to the grocery store, and I mentioned I was only in prison for like 5.5 months, in jail for 4.5 months, and then I went to work early. So no like super long extended period of time, but still very much not making decisions on my own. And so twice when I went to the grocery store, I left my cart. I was like, I can't like, I can't do this anymore. And those are things that you don't think about, nor would you ever have an inkling that that would be a struggle that somebody would have without knowing that personally. And so I just think, again, there are a whole population of people that kind of count themselves out, and I just want to support whoever, however we can.
So since starting Project Me, have you ever done anything like go to the grocery store or help somebody find cell phone service, put in an application for a job, those kinds of things?
Yes,
then?
absolutely. And a lot of times it's the technology stuff. Like, people don't know that they can get online and apply for things. That, that's kind of newer, even though we're all acclimated to it. That's not something that's just normal for somebody that's just coming out of incarceration. So.
But you were able to, coming out of your addiction, you were able to go to college. After college, were you able to get a job?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I actually got the first job that I applied for out of college, having shared my whole criminal history. And so, if you all are familiar, I worked at SCAN, which is Stop Child Abuse and Neglect here in Fort Wayne, and it's a huge, power nonprofit organization. There were several people who told me not to waste my time. You're not going to get a job someplace like that where you're supporting families and children. And I did. And I shared everything about me, including asking about my tattoos and if that was appropriate for working there. And I had to do some extra things because I had 4 felonies. But to work with families and children, what I had to do was write an essay, just kind of letting them know how I wasn't the person that they saw on paper. So the things that I had done since my incarceration to, just grow and heal, and why I thought I would be a good employee for them. And so I wrote that and applied for a DCS waiver, so that I could work with families. And after there was a 4-week delay or something, but then I was able to work there. And I worked there for almost 4 years, and I got so much just good experience about how to support people. And of course, there's a large cross section of families who are impacted by substances. So, and that was what I wanted to do. I went to college, and my the concentration was addiction and mental health. And so that was right in my wheelhouse. And yeah, so then I was able to tell people it's not true. Don't listen when people tell you it may be a little more difficult to get a job when you have a history. But I think where the real barrier lies is when people just completely count themselves out before they even try. Because I had 4 felonies, and they were, kind of rapid fire. I had 10 years of just not good. And so what that looked like on paper, and then for me to move forward and get a job like I had and just be able to continue moving forward has been amazing.
That's awesome. You can all use yourselves then as wonderful examples to others in the community that they too can get past their addiction and move forward and move on. And that's awesome. Yeah. Hopefully you're building a large base of individuals that others can look up to, because I think that's so very important. I want to thank you all for being here this evening. We've learned a lot about the fact that one can recover from addiction. One can move beyond. Sometimes it takes moving away, but you can move on. You're all wonderful examples of what one can do after addiction. I congratulate all of you on your successes. You have the information if you wish to donate to this wonderful not-for-profit. If you want to help someone in your life who is actively in addiction, I know Aisha would love to get you some of her strips and Narcan so that you could perhaps help save a life as well. And just being there to support people as they're in their addiction, as they want to come out of their addiction. Being there to support people, I think, is very important, and you've all been wonderful examples of that. Thank you for joining me with On the Level with LINSKY.
Thank you so much for having me. Us, all of us.
get nervous. I was nervous and I was moving a little bit.